agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. I will say I need to remove one item, and that's item G. Authorization to purchase backhoe for wastewater, which will come out of their agenda. Motion by Mrs. Jerks.
As amended.
As amended. Second by Mr. Allen. Discussion. Anybody in the audience wish to address these? Roll call.
Sharps. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Savers. Aye. Rice. Aye. Dosher. Aye. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I just want to point out there are a couple of new appointments in.
There are. Park and Rec Board, we have a new appointment to replace Mr. Tupper, whose time was expired, correct? And that is.
Library.
And the library has Mr. Nath coming on. Carly Elwine Flemmer resigned her position. She is moving to Aberdeen, and so Mr. Denny Nath will be taking that spot. Okay. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be given consideration, but no action will be taken at this time. Does anybody wish to address the council? I will point out quickly that I put a letter from a resident of Huron at each one of your positions commending the cemetery over Memorial Day weekend. It was in top notch, and the crews were all looking good out there, and this person was very impressed with the way our cemetery looked and the performance of the employees. So you have a copy of that letter on your desk.
I've got one for Nathan. I was out at the Cadwell Park this weekend for the Arm Johnston Invitational Baseball. Sunshades, they're not all up. Is there a problem with some of them?
Yeah, we had 2 of the pipes cracked that will hold them up over the winter. We did get those in. They were supposed to replace them either today or tomorrow.
Okay.
As they would be up and complete. So,
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have one question for Kyle. If we have a updated timing at First and Sanborn.
Yes, actually, they're scheduled to do a closure for First and Sanborn next Monday. So we're planning on putting out the information on media and get that message out. So Sanborn and First, that intersection will be closed starting Monday. We're going to work on the changing the one-way signs as well this Friday. So the citizens can plan to adjust the traffic in that manner.
Kyle, is there an estimate on how long that intersection will be closed?
Oh, I want to say 40 days or so. What, was that right? I think it was about 40 days, 40 or 40. That's right.
Roughly 6 months.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address council? Okay. Mr. Powell, did you want to briefly touch on mosquito control?
Yeah, I checked for an update today. I actually hadn't received it yet, how we're doing this week, but we did do our first fogging last week. We are planning on doing it before the 4th of July, and we may even do one in between now and then. So,
Thank you.
and
I know everybody's going to be anxiously wondering about those little buggers.
we do have someone spraying any wet spots that we find, so they can call in and we can come out and spray for you. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay. Presentation on recycling from Millennium Recycling.
Mr. Mayor and Council, before Neil takes it away, I just wanted to say that this is a continuation of our discussion for recycling. We talked about some of the options and some of the background and history on recycling, and had some comments about collection. But having Millennium here, we went and toured their facility. They've got a spectacular facility actually for their program. Millennium is a material recovery facility. They are not a collector. So this is another aspect of recycling that we wanted to get out in front of the council and the public.
We do have 3 representatives from Millennial here, and I will let them introduce themselves and their titles. And you do have the PowerPoint that is in your packet, so they're going to probably be going through that momentarily, and then they'll stand ready for any questions that you may have, and then also staff will be here as well.
Thank you for having us. We thought we'd be able to share a little more about what goes on regionally and what we do out of Sioux Falls here. My name is Shannon Dwyer. I'm the president of Millennium Recycling. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. All right. Marissa is our education and communications and outreach, and Bruce Williams, he is our customer representative. So, all right. All right, so who is Millennium Recycling? We are a MRF. We receive materials from haulers and communities all over South Dakota and beyond. Our footprint is about 250 miles. We receive materials from Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and we do get some material out of Canada occasionally. We are specialized in sorting single-stream materials. We process about 125 to 130 tons per day, about 50,000 tons per year. Our primary materials are cardboard, paper, metal cans, plastic bottles, tubs and jugs, glass bottles and jars. Our equipment runs 4 days a week to keep up with volume, and the 5th day is dedicated solely to cleanup and maintenance. And that's mainly due to the impact of contamination that might be in the materials. As a regional provider, we serve customers across the upper Midwest. We do not compete with waste haulers. Haulers are our customers. Each customer has their own requirements. Each customer has their own mix of materials, and our services are catered to customer requirements and municipal needs. Our role in the industry, we invest in relationships and education. We're always planning for tonnage to fulfill orders and secure pricing, and that's critical in our business. Strong end user relationships and loyalties mean that we have steady material movement in good and bad markets to the paper mills, plastic grinders, and other facilities. We prefer local, loose, single stream for quality and runnability, but we do help others when we're able. Education is prioritized through outreach programs, tours, waste audits. We also cater a lot of the design. Marissa does a lot of design work for the communities that we work in. So why should we recycle? Generations before saw the value of using products to their fullest potential. As our throwaway culture has grown, this has changed. Americans now throw out about 4.4 pounds per person per day. Burying or burning all of this trash may seem simple in the short term, but the savings that come from recycling are long term. The 3 E's that we focus on, number 1 is economy. Reduces waste sent to landfills, saving space, costing us less. Recycling generates as many as 30 times more jobs than landfill and incinerators, such as material sorters, dispatchers, truck drivers, brokers, sales reps, process engineers, chemists within the mills. Directly support local private businesses while reducing public funding needed to continue expanding the landfills. And recycling puts valuable resources back into the marketplace instead of burning or burying them. So a good example would be like for the Sioux Falls landfill, a cost to construct one landfill cell in Sioux Falls is $6 million, and they fill up in about 8 years. Overall operating costs for that cell are about $180 million, or 59.2 dollars per cubic yard. The 2017 recycling industry's economic impact in South Dakota alone was over $250 million. When things are dumped at the landfill, the raw material and energy used to make them are completely lost. Producing items from recovered rather than raw materials uses significantly less energy even after accounting for collection, processing, and transportation. This results in less burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas. 95% less energy is used to make a can from a recycled aluminum can than bauxite. 40% for paper, 60 to 74% for tin, 30% less for plastics, 15% less for glass. The environment prevents pollution generated and the energy required when raw materials are used to make new products. It conserves finite resources like water, metal ores, wood, minerals, and oil, reducing pressure to expand deforestation and mining operations. It prevents water and air pollution from landfills and incinerators. According to the EPA, even modern landfills with new clay and plastic liners will ultimately fail, causing methane gas and leachate to escape into the air and groundwater. Making glass from recycled material cuts related water pollution by 50%. Recycling 1 ton of cardboard saves 46 gallons of oil. And recycling 1 ton of paper saves 17 trees and 7,000 gallons of water. Millennium Recycling began single stream back in 2007. We were one of the first facilities in South Dakota to do this, with all recyclables going into one single container. We are equipped to process and sort these materials. Anything else must be handpicked off the line. Our machinery actually handles the material at about 95% efficiency, and the quality control is by people that handle the other 5%. So you've got cans, steel, tin, and aluminum, paper, cardboard and cartons, plastic tubs and jugs, bottles, glass bottles and jars, and you've got shredded paper that we still allow in a clear plastic bag.
Just out of curiosity, we were told previously that if something, for example, like cardboard was oily or something, that it couldn't be recycled. Is that true?
The paper mills in general have, they've modernized like everything else with the times. And so they're able to handle a lot more than they used to. We want any excess food thrown out. And if it's saturated, yeah, it's really no value to the paper mills. But if it's just lightly greased, not a problem. So, yes.
Does colored glass, or some colored glasses not allowed?
We allow all bottles and jars. So, as long as it's a bottle or a jar, we can take it.
So you don't care if it's a green glass or a brown glass or a clear
No.
glass or?
We
pink
mix it
glass?
together on purpose.
No plastic bags?
So Marty, you can do more.
Correct. We have done away with plastic bags. Yeah, we have. Just recently. So.
Let me just ask you one more question. So I noticed it says, somewhere I read when I was going through this maybe that it clean, that you guys clean it. The part of your process is cleaning, for example, I'm thinking of the plastic containers.
We
One
do,
of-
we
part
do
of your-
not clean. No.
Okay,
Oh, cleaning facility?
yeah. Like I'm just thinking, let's say someone didn't rinse out their milk jug or something. Does your process include that?
No.
I think what you're referring to, we talked about that fifth day is just for cleaning and maintenance. That was just for
Our facility, yeah.
Okay.
But
So-
do you have to have, all right, say I finished a jelly or jam in the jar. You know, I think right now, if it's not clean, they won't take it here.
Okay. We do take it. So as long as it's emptied, and that is just fine. So we just ask that you just empty it.
So I'm just clarifying, you aren't checking to see that people have cleaned out their containers.
No.
You're
No.
just kind of trusting that they're doing it and accepting it as
Well,
it is?
and oftentimes they don't. I mean, we do deal with some of that, but we encourage them, and that's what we need them to do. Haulers, for example, deliver to our facility, and when they dump, we look for contamination. But in our eyes, contamination is items that don't belong, or excessive food. If I get gallon cans, for example, from the school system, and they don't empty them, and I've got, food all over the floor, that's a problem. So. Yep. So single stream recycling and how does it work? We're going to show you a little video that kind of goes over that.
You might have to click on this one.
Yep.
Yep.
So. So We have some funky music usually that plays behind that, but the hauler dumps material onto the tipping floor, and a loader moves the material up onto the conveyor. So we receive packer trucks, walking floor containers. I mean, we got an assortment of type of material in here. Oop.
You can make it full screen. Hover over that bottom.
There you go. So and a loader moves the material up onto the conveyor. And we actually will mix it on purpose. Sometimes we'll get heavier one material than the other, and we actually blend it back in on purpose because our machine is set to work that way. So team members will remove anything non-recyclable, plastic bags, bulky items, things that can't go through the system. So as you can see here, we've actually removed bags now from our recycling. So we're working on that education and working to remove them, but you can see how labor intensive that they are. A lot of people don't bag their bags, and it's amazing how many bags have grown in our materials. A screen separates the cardboard using rotating discs. Smaller objects fall through and continue on. We actually have a glass breaker that's actually under here. They fall through, it breaks, and then it goes through screens and removes most of it from the material. A finishing screen separates out two-dimensional objects, paper, from three-dimensional containers that fall through and continue on. They naturally roll back. And we can adjust the screens as needed for wet material or bulky material. And that's the paper coming through. A strong magnet removes steel cans and separates them into a holding bin. And that's actually that conveyor that's spinning there. It actually pulls them and drops them. An eddy current separator repels aluminum cans and foil from the conveyor and onto another holding area. Here they're doing a final quality check of anything that might not have gone through that shouldn't have.
How efficient is it?
It's about 95% on its own. An optical sorter uses cameras and sensors to separate plastics by resin code or type. And it uses air, actually. If you've ever seen the Green Giant videos, like on PBS, where they shoot bad peas off, that's kind of how this works. It actually will blow the types of plastics into their own bin. Glass bottles and jars are shattered throughout the process. The shards fall below and are separated out. So we actually use just weight. Weight is what pulls it out of our system. It's the heaviest item. After all the materials have been separated out, they're ready to be sent in for new products. Examples of paper, cardboard. Those bales weigh pretty significant. The bales weigh approximately about anywhere from 1,200 in the container side and up to 3,000 pounds on the paper side. We actually get quite heavy bales. So. All right, there we go. These are our top no's. These are things that do contaminate in the material. So we're constantly pushing education to try to make sure. There's a lot of misunderstandings out there. And with the rise of home health care, not a lot of education out there as far as those items. And so we do once in a while, we'll get needles and pills and things that don't belong. Metal, rubber, wood, organics, styrofoam, toys and clothes, dishes and baking dishes, those types of glass we can't use. Electronics and bulbs, hazardous materials, and now we've added plastic bags to this list.
Sure. Can I just ask another question, since I know this, you may not have the answer, but the needles and pills thing was something that was brought to my attention by a person in our community that was concerned about that. Can you tell us what other communities do, what other communities have in place for biohazardous material disposal?
A lot of it, especially in South Dakota, is based on your local health department and what kind of enforcement that you're going to do. We found when we started seeing some of this, because we actually had in Sioux Falls, we actually had clinics that were breaking the rules. They were putting stuff in the recycling bin. And so we actually helped legislate, but the problem is enforcement and how do you punish that? So we did some of those things. But locally, I mean, if I get prescription bottles, I'll actually call the people if I can find them. We'll stop by. We've done that already. Or we encourage and we push through the garbage haulers that can't be brought in. So a lot of it is just education. And it's making sure that people have access to proper disposal. So do they have access to a needle bin? So, yeah.
Like, where does Sioux Falls, what does the city of Sioux Falls do?
Oh, the city of Sioux Falls does offer free collection bins for needles. They also do, and I think most counties in your sheriff's department might even collect pills too. I don't know if at certain times of the year, but ours does. So as long as the city, the city is pretty proactive about that kind of stuff, so. So what happens when it leaves our facility? So there you go, our paper averages about 2,800 pounds, and cardboard, all those fiber products, they actually end up in Minnesota, Iowa, and worldwide. Most of it stays in the Midwest, though. We actually export very little. We don't actually do any exporting at all right now. So, but what happens to that paper? Water is added, washed, drained, dried. It's pulped, is what they call it, and flattened back into rolls again and reused back in the paper process. Aluminum and tin and steel, that goes all over the United States. It's washed, it's cleaned, it's shredded and melted, and it's molded back into flat sheets. A lot of cans go back for aluminum cans. Otherwise it goes for car parts and bikes and appliance type materials. Aluminum is used in all sorts of things. Our glass bottles and jars go into Minnesota. They're washed and cleaned, sorted by color, melted and molded and back into new products. I know most of our glass goes for bottling. That's where a lot of it goes. You'll see people using it in products such as countertops. It's also in fiberglass insulation. There's people that use it in their roadways. So.
And this is where I was reading this, where you say washed and cleaned. Is that by the recipient of the products then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Our glass goes to another processor that does all of that for us. So, and they will sort it by color, and then they put the color back into the market that needs it. Plastic bottles, tubs, and jugs. Most of it goes into Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and Ohio. I do have some that goes up into Canada. It's washed and cleaned, shredded and melted, molded back into pellets. Plastic lumber is a big thing. And a lot of our material goes back into plastic lumber, banding, those kind of items. So a lot of people ask why single stream. It is more effective. It's higher participation and quantity of materials. More convenient. It's one bin, less space, less hassle. It's more participation. Up to 500% increases have been reported. Less litter, covered bins, less handling, more accepted materials, a wider array of items. Decrease in garbage tonnage, avoiding a tip fees. Lower collection costs, 25% savings on average on the collection side. Better route efficiencies, less fuel, maintenance, overhead. You can fill a truck instead of having one part of a truck filled. Safer, it's cart-based, collection decreases, work comp claims are lower. So some communities that have made the switch. Rock County, Minnesota, for example, they streamlined their single stream process that started in 2012, joined us in 2015. Increased the area served, covered the whole county. Types of recyclables collected, they increased. So they estimate a 23% increase with new services for the entire county. It's much easier to recycle. Pipestone County, they joined Single Stream back in December 2018. They're actually pretty new. Increased the areas served. They wanted to be able to cover the whole county and surrounding towns. Updated and promoted new education. The local hauler delivers packers and roll-offs to Millennium 3 times a week. There's at least a 50% increase in participation, and the county is getting more value out of a service and very happy with the switch. Huron, South Dakota, they streamlined their single stream collection process spring of 2018 with us. Increased efficiencies, cost effectiveness, and reduced confusion. We updated and promoted new education, and the city of Huron delivers walking floor trailers to Millennium weekly. Significant decrease in number of questions to the city, faster and more efficient delivery of materials. Yankton, South Dakota switched to single stream in May 2017. Increased efficiencies, cost effectiveness, and participation. Implemented large covered single rolling carts versus small separated bins. Planned, promoted, and implemented new continued education campaign. They doubled their participation rate in the first year from 24% to 52%, and increased residential curbside materials by 268.6%. We offer customer support, custom educational tools, web, social and print design, continue education that brings success, such as blogs, question and answer, facility tours, community education support, presentation videos, classroom kits. We have expert consulting and commercial waste audits, opportunities for nonprofits and community events, truckload brokerage, partials and sorted, convenient wire supply and sales to those that need it. And we have a low residual weight, one of the lowest in the country. We're very careful about what comes in, and that way we can control that what has to go out. The City of Mitchell, current recycling and waste data. And we collected this information from your online viewing of your presentations and from the Mitchell Republic. Average landfill data averaged 28,154 tons landfill per year. Serves 23 communities, an estimated 100-year lifespan. Recycling data, your average for 2017 and 2018 was 1,275 tons per year. Of that, 440 residential, 679 commercial. Voluntary with 26% participation rate, which was up 6% in 13 years. So we encourage all those that are involved with recycling with us to measure your costs, figure out your collection costs and your processing costs, and divide it by your tons recycled to get your cost per ton. The industry recognizes and measures most everything by ton. So calculating costs with single stream with Millennium Recycling, your per ton collection costs are unknown, but average per ton freight costs, if you do a third party like a walking floor, would probably average about $50 a ton. And our processing flat fee is about that $35 per ton. And there are cost saving sharing opportunities in the surrounding communities that are available out there. So just taking your rough numbers, we're estimating with the 285,600 residential rate and 440 tons, it's costing about $649 per ton. So we thank you. We encourage you if you have any questions or would like to see more. We do give tours, so you're welcome to come visit us at any time. Do you have any questions for us today?
Yeah, I got one on cardboard. We have an issue with wax, inside wax, that holds meats.
Yeah.
We have to throw it in the garbage.
Wax cardboard is a problem.
Okay, and what about six-pack holders like bottles of beer?
The plastic holders, we don't recycle those.
What's that?
We don't recycle those.
So they gotta go in the bears, that's correct. So the cardboard ones.
Oh,
that
the
hold
cardboard
bottles
ones?
of
The
beer.
cases? The
They're
cases are
not-
fine.
They're not that rough stuff, they're flat, they won't take them.
Yep. We do take them in residential quantities. If it's business quantities, that would change it. So there's the mill allows a
But the ones
certain
that are
percentage.
waxed on the inside,
Not, well, your.
like your 10-pound tubes of hamburger, your prime rib comes in those stuff. And
If they're actual wax, those are a problem. Or if they're actually plastic lined, those are a problem. Your regular pop holders, though, are no longer an issue at the mills that we ship to.
Now, these are wax lines in
Yeah.
case they bleed, so they don't go through the bottom.
Sure, yeah, like your orchids
And we have to
and
throw
stuff.
them in the garbage.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yep, that is correct, yep.
Of the cities that you have in South Dakota, is it a percentage of the, that's bringing the material to your place, city cost, or the city is driving it, or is it more of a private industry that is bringing the material in?
It all depends on the community. A lot of the smaller cities, it's run by the city usually. Sioux Falls has a kind of a different dynamic, different than most of the nation actually, where they have multiple haulers that privately run. So I think there's like 23, garbage haulers right now in Sioux Falls. So.
And Yankton actually does their municipalities, they haul to Millennium.
Is here in private or city run?
They are city.
They're city also.
Yep. Like, for example, Pipestone County, there's a hauler that they've contracted that hauls the material to us. And then we work with the hauler.
I'm looking more as the collection
Sure,
part of it.
yeah. And they do the collection. We don't collect.
Right.
Yeah.
but I'm just curious to see if you see more of a private industry or public.
It just all
Sioux
depends on the
Falls obviously
community.
is private.
That is definitely private, but
Yeah.
yeah, like Huron, Yankton is private. Huron, or, yeah, they're city, or they're public, I'm sorry, they're city pickup, yeah.
You know, Pipestone and Rock County are collected by a private hauler.
Yeah,
It can be done either way.
yeah, and so is Laverne.
Yeah.
Shannon, do you see the difference in the recyclable material, the quality of the recyclable material between municipalities and private?
We do, actually, municipalities do a better job about keeping it cleaner. The municipalities do. Their education is more unified. Their message is usually more unified. So, and that's just from what we've seen. So, I mean, we've got, you know, for example, in Sioux Falls with all the haulers, we do have some haulers that do just as well as the municipalities and some that don't. It just depends on how they run their programs. So.
Do you have any communities that are collection sites and where people drop off and then haul over to your facility?
Like a
Or
transfer
is it all
station?
is it all curbside?
No, like I think what he means is the city puts out like a box somewhere and people can come to it.
For example, Rock County's got, a lot of their small towns do still have sheds. The problem is that they do have to watch them pretty closely. The haulers end up cleaning it up. So there is some of that. Yeah. Yankton, for example, does have a drop-off at their transfer station that they allow residents to drop off there.
And they picked it up too.
They also ship it from there, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Committee reports, traffic.
Traffic Committee met at 6 o'clock this evening. We had 3 items on the agenda. First being the Ethan American Post, Legion Post 261, having a Sweat for Vets 5K at the Corn Palace on Saturday, September 14th. From 10 a.m., request 600 block North Main be closed from 3 a.m. till noon for registration. That item passed. Second item, the Palace City Kiwanis Half Marathon and Relay scheduled for October 6th. They're requesting 5th to 7th on North Main be closed with no parking either side of the street. That item also passed. Third item, VFW requests the northeast section of the public parking lot, second Raleigh, to be closed for the groundbreaking ceremony of their elevator project held Wednesday, July 3rd. That lot would be closed from noon until 6 p.m. with the alley also being closed, and that item also passed. Traffic Commission adjourned at 6:04 p.m.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the committee report.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Public health and safety.
Public Health and Safety met tonight, and we had one agenda item. It was a presentation from the Emergency Management from the county. They went through the local Emergency Planning Commission information and how disaster declarations are made, and gave us an update a little bit on what the current state situation is with the March and April disaster declarations, and that's it.
Motion to approve the public safety, health and safety.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve the application of Marco's Pizza for renewal of malt beverage license. Any issues from PD?
No issues from public safety.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to go back to item G that was removed from the consent agenda? Or do you have
I'd
it
put it
listed?
down
Okay.
at the very end. Just before executive session. Oh, no. Hearings on application to transfer retail on-sale liquor license RL 19079 from Aniza Diner, doing business as Potter's Plus Studio, 100 North Main, Mitchell, South Dakota, to Jade's, doing business as Jade's, 107 North Main, Mitchell, South Dakota. Public safety, any issues?
We have no objection.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. On application of Exchange Club of Mitchell for a special event malt beverage license located at Cadwell Park, Mitchell, South Dakota for August 7th, 2019 through August 18th, 2019 for the state amateur baseball tournament.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2019-25, actuarial services agreement with Silverstone Group. Mrs. Bathke.
This is required to be done every couple of years. It's a GASB 75 reporting and disclosure requirement. And this, the report is needed for our audit at the end of the year. So this agreement will be good for years 2019 and 2020 audits. And the other post-employment benefits have to do with the retiree insurance we offer our retiring employees.
I move to approve, but I have one question. This was budgeted?
Yes. Yep, I had $6,000 budgeted, and they said it would be no more than $5,500.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Smith. This is going to have to happen, I think,
Yeah, I know.
yearly
I
for
just wondering.
40 or 50 years. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreements A 2019-26A and 26B, Wright Brothers FBO agreement and hangar lease.
All right, I'll kind of give you a brief introduction here. So out at the airport, Wright Brothers has been operating now for about the last 35 years. They initially started out with a 25-year fixed-base operator agreement. About 10 years into that, they did some improvements, and the length of that agreement was extended to another 25 years. And that brings us to 2019. That agreement did expire, so we're looking to get a new agreement in place. Many of the terms from the old lease carried over. There were a few, I would say, minor changes based off of what we saw happening in other communities and other terms that were in other lease, other fixed-base operator agreements that we reviewed. This would be for the fixed-base operator agreement, another 35-year term, as it's listed in there. The hangar lease is a separate lease. So the fixed-base operator agreement covers the primary Wright Brothers building out at the airport. Just to the south, I think southeast, if my directions are right. We have a city-owned hangar at that location that Wright Brothers has been using for quite a while. This would cover the lease of that building. It would also run for 35 years, and the city would have options to end that lease early every 5 years if it deemed it appropriate. There's representative for Wright Brothers here. They can give you any input they might have or answer any questions. I will let you know that probably at the next council meeting or the one after that, depending on how fast we can get the work done, but we're going to be considering a supplemental services agreement to address a few things that Wright Brothers has been doing out at the airport for quite a while now. I think that most people would like to see that continue in some kind of fashion, but we're not to the point yet where we've been able to finalize that or the list of services or any of that information, but that will probably be coming in the near future, just so you're aware. And I'll hand it over to Wright Brothers if they've got anything to add.
Good evening. My name is Don Peterson, an attorney, and I represent Wright Brothers. The only thing to add to what Justin has said is that the terms that he has in here have them terminating the leases in 2044 instead of 2049. So if you, we'd want that amended as part of it. But other than that, I think Justin has accurately set forth. We've had negotiations with a couple council members and the mayor, and I think it's worked out very well. So we can answer any questions that any of the council members may have.
Just to clarify those changes before we get to a motion from anybody, I'll just kind of walk through. Really all it is correcting dates to line up with the 35-year timeline. On the FBO agreement, there would be a change on page 1, and then also a change on page 8. I don't think we need to bring them up. It's just changing it from a prior draft where it was listed at an earlier date to the correct dates. And then on the hangar lease, there would be changes to those dates on page 1 and page 3 to reflect the correct timelines.
2044, you're going 35 years, right? So it
Right.
should actually be 2054.
Correct.
Right.
Yep, and those other locations
look-in
that I
dates,
mentioned,
yes.
that would be where those look-in periods are referenced. So
Right.
A lot of dates were thrown around during the negotiations.
Yes, there were. There were.
So I'll make sure that those are all corrected in the
Right.
final draft that gets signed.
I will move with those amendments.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate, Don and Susan and I met and with the mayor and Justin and talked through most of this stuff. The only feedback I've had, really it was just today, based on what the newspaper put in, was the question of is 35 years a normal time for a lease type this, but with the 5-year look-in type things, I guess I don't have an issue with that of whether that's too long a time.
I would say that state statutes allow for fixed base operations to go up to 50 years. And
Yeah.
that's.
So we're not at the max, and
We're not at the max, and there are look-ins to increase rent throughout the
Right.
term of the
Yes,
lease,
sir.
so.
And just
I'm
for
sure the
reference-
Shannons are going to want to work through those 35 years too, right?
That was the comments that I had received back.
I think they want to work through it and then have an option to renew.
Then they'll leave it to Roger, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just for reference on that time period, the last one was 25 years, but like I said, it was renewed 10 years into its initial term, so it ended up being 35 years.
Yeah. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-43, a plat of lot 12 of Meadows Court of Iverson's addition located in lot B of the southeast quarter of section 33, township 103 north, range 60 west of the 5th prime meridian, Davidson County, South Dakota.
As you can see, the Planning Commission did review this particular plat that is before you. Just to get your bearings straight, this is straight south of town on Raleigh Street, just outside the city limits, but it might be a little confusing as Iverson's addition, but this is not near Iverson. But as you can see, now there was also some material in there that you probably noticed, because the Planning Commission always, typically when their subdivision collectus comes, they review a master plan, so there was some material that you saw that Planning Commission did review as well. So this is the plat that actually puts that lot into place, so. The county will have to see this plat as well, but I don't believe they've seen it yet. So they're going to see it next month. But our Planning Commission did recommend approval.
Move to approve Resolution 2019-43, Plat 12.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Thank you. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Action on Resolution R 2019-44, plat of Lot 6, Block 4 of the Woods, first edition, a subdivision of the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 23, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, the Planning Commission did review this plat and did recommend approval. As you can see, it pretty much follows the master plan out there.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Jarks,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen.
So now, Kevin, are you going to make your comment about how full that's getting?
Oh, what's that?
About how full that's getting?
No, it's, I got pictures here to prove it.
That's
It's
got to be
filling up
close.
out there. I don't
It's
think
got to be
there's
close
ma-
to the last lot, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not many left.
Just as a reminder, this is also in the TIF district, so that's why this kind of helps as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there's probably only one or two left out there. Better buy quick.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-45, a plat of Lot 6, Block 9 of the Westwood First Edition of subdivision of Block 4 Westwood Edition of the northwest quarter of Section 16, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, the Planning Commission reviewed this plat and did recommend approval. This is out where those twin homes are being right off of
How about
Ullman
Twin
and
City fan?
20th.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-46, plat of Lot 6 of Maui Farms, Second Edition, a subdivision of southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, this was reviewed with the Planning Commission, recommend approval. You can kind of see how the fit in the master plan as well.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second reading of ordinance O 2019-08, adding a new section to chapter 4-7, pawnbrokers.
Nothing new on this one from last meeting. Like I said, it's just to be compliant with the state law that was passed this year.
Move to approve on second reading.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Place on second reading. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion by Mrs. Charks to adopt,
Second.
second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Roll call.
Savers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington. Allen.
Aye.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye. Motion carries. Back to item G, authorized purchase of backhoe for wastewater project 2019-41 off the Sourcewell equipment contract.
Mr. Mayor and Council, and so this is a new item. It was not budgeted for 2019, but we planned on having this budgeted in 2020 for the wastewater group. The backhoe is about 19 years old at this point. We've had consistent maintenance on it. I believe the maintenance is increasing in cost. At 19 years, John did contact a replacement, a vendor, and right now they're offering the replacement for the 2019 CAT backhoe with incentives up to about $9,000, $10,000 in savings, which would actually be $10,000 more next year if it was budgeted. So we brought this to council for consideration.
This is out of the enterprise fund, correct?
Yes, sir, on the wastewater enterprise fund.
So if we buy it this year, and if we wait till next year, that $10,000 will be more of an expense, won't it?
Yes, sir. As it stands now, the cost savings is about $10,000 to purchase this year versus next year.
This is the one that we use for breakage, don't we, or for water
Yep.
break?
Yes, sir. Both departments use it, both divisions use it, both wastewater and water. Wastewater mostly for the bigger stuff and for wastewater and storm. But they brought it out at First and Kimball and some of the bigger breaks that we've had.
Is a local concern selling it, or where did you bid this out?
The contract that's noted on the agenda item is the state.
Through Sourcewell.
Yep.
So it's actually coming out of Huron, the machine would be. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Matt Tobin. He's the one that I've been in contact with and working on it, so. Butler Machinery, yeah, correct. And he also said they're 2 on the low side, 4% on the high side of additional cost on top of that for next year, on top of that 10,000. So I thought I'd bring it to you guys and show you what our cost savings would be if you guys are interested in purchasing. Otherwise, we'll probably budget for 2020.
Well, I'm all about saving $10,000, so I will move approval for the purchase of the backhoe.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Starks.
And
Second.
where is it coming out of again?
Wastewater Enterprise Fund.
And what's our cash position look like on that?
It's over $1 million, our
And there's
cash.
quite a bit of funds committed in that for the projects that we have coming up in the next couple of years, so. Yep. It's not like it's people to get, yeah, I don't want people to get that
Yeah.
opinion.
No, we're not sitting on $1 million.
Yeah.
It will get spent.
And then the other thing is, we're gonna, I'm not sure why we had made a switch, but we're gonna make sure that these requests that are outside budget are on the regular agenda item, not on consent, because they are capital purchase and requests that were not considered as part of the public hearing process with the budgets. That's why we're doing this as an actual action item with council right now.
Okay.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 21, executive session. Motion to enter into executive session in accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, 3 legal and 4 negotiations.
Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCartan, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. There won't be any action after executive session.
Oh, Michelle, will you get me?
Oh.